And we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to Behind the Tool Belt episode 238. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday edition. Today, we have another special guest. Stay tuned. We will be right back after our short intro from our sponsors.
GC Backer. Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, solar. Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, solar. GC Backer.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Happy Wednesday, and thank you for joining us on your lunch break today. Hopefully, you're not going to get in trouble. Hopefully, you're clocked out and off the watch. And we're bringing you a wonderful special, and I say special because of the special niche, the special industry. Good, soon to be hopefully colleague of mine, Doug Quinn. I had the honor, the privilege of sitting on a leadership panel with him this past Win the Storm conference this year. Got to listen to a lot of his insights and leadership style and skills, and personally think that he runs a top-notch, phenomenal organization over there. My friend, Doug Quinn, how are you, buddy?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Fantastic. Couldn't ask for anything better. I mean, it's almost scary on how things are going personally, professionally. Business is good. I too own a roofing business. Like many of our viewers on here watching today or will watch this on the playback, but things are great, man. Thank you for asking.
Excellent. Well, the one thing we know is any given status on any given minute is temporary. Yes. So if things aren't going well, hold on, it'll turn around, it'll get better. And if things are good, savor the moment because tough times are coming.
Yeah, no doubt. All it takes is one text message or a phone call away from complete disaster. So no pun intended when I said disaster. Speaking of which, we had some recent storms up here last night. We had a tornado touchdown. I am coming from right now, South Central Pennsylvania. We had a tornado touchdown with some hail, high winds, things like that. So our team right now is out in the community trying to help homeowners get tarps on their roofs, probably some tree removal we also have a landscaping business. So I'm sure Corey's getting calls about some trees and debris and stuff like that in the road and people's yards like that. So, Doug, I had like I said earlier, I had the honor to sit on a panel with you, which I felt was very special, at least special to me, because to be hand selected to speak on a leadership panel, because that leadership seems to be a big catchphrase nowadays, leadership and stuff like that. But I took it to heart, and to be able to sit up there with who I feel is an innovator like yourself, an original, an OG to our industry. You are definitely no stranger when it comes to insurance, restoration, roofing, storm damage, things of that nature. Why don't you give us a little bit of a brief background of who you are, what it was like, what it's like now, and basically how you got here. And then we can talk about, the American Policy Association. And then I would love to also touch on your nonprofit organization and the United Survivors Disaster Relief at some point throughout the show here.
Yeah. And all those efforts come from past experiences, right? I'm a big believer. I learned a philosophy earlier in life that you can't cure all the suffering in the world, but you can address what's right in front of you. And if you embrace that, then maybe you can understand that there's a reason why this particular suffering is right in front of you, because perhaps you're the person with the abilities and the resources to do something about it. So, we sort of take the experiences we go through in life, the lessons that we learn, and what normal people go through is, they'll experience some type of a trauma, some type of an issue. They'll fight their way through it. They'll learn how to get through it and get to the other side, and then they go on with their life. And the problem with that is, you lose a lot of what you've learned. So we sort of make it a point to, okay, I made it through the fire. Now I'm going to reach my hand back for the people that are coming behind me and help them make it through the fire. So, look, I was living the dream. I was living in a beach house on the Jersey Shore, single guy, and everything was great. I had a great, career as a financial advisor, unlimited income potential. My firm was owned by one of the country's largest insurance companies. So I had grown up in the insurance industry for 20, 30 years. I am a big believer in insurance. I still am. But when my home got wiped out in a natural disaster, Superstorm Sandy, I started to see the other side that, it's not always what the TV commercials promised you. And, I want to be clear, insurance is a very important risk management tool that the average person can handle a loss that would otherwise be catastrophic and set their family back for generations. It's a way that they can get through that, recover, and resume a normal life. That's the way it's supposed to work. It doesn't always. So we're here to address to make sure that it does. But, I got wiped out. My insurance company, my house wound up being a total loss. My insurance company offered me 37 cents on the dollar. They sent an engineer out who basically said, this was pre-existing condition. This was earth movement, shifting of the supporting soils, which conveniently was an exclusion on my policy. And the more we started, and, look, my big believer in insurance, grew up in the insurance industry. I just kept thinking, it's a mistake. They just don't get it. Maybe I'm not articulating clear enough. Maybe I need to send more pictures. They're just not getting, it is a mistake. And in retrospect, it was not a mistake. It was a strategy. And it's a strategy that they employ all over the country. Delay, deny, defend, using experts as a tool of denial. And basically, whatever language you want to apply to it, but it's the type of thing that the average person is not suited to fight. The average person is in no position to fight $1 billion insurance company who has armies of attorneys, engineers, adjusters, lobbyists, all these people that have all this experience, and the average consumer who maybe fills out one or two homeowners claims in their life is not suited. Most people don't understand what's in their insurance policy. Most people don't know how to advocate for themselves. And I'll tell you, with $250,000 of insurance, it took me 7 years to get back home. And that experience, I was better suited for that fight than the average person. I was a financial advisor. I'd grown up in the insurance industry. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I live, you're in PA. We live in an area of the country where people are very comfortable with conflict. And people tend to be a little more aggressive. So I had all that going for me. And, that experience broke me. I had days I couldn't get out of bed. I mean, I had days when I just could not see the way home. It consumed my whole life. And when I finally did get through it, I started thinking, what are other people who are not as suited to this? How are they handling? How is somebody who's elderly? How is somebody who has young children? How is somebody where maybe English is a second language? The people that this falls upon are the people that are vulnerable, people that are in many cases poor, under-resourced. They don't have the money for a lawyer. They don't have friends who are lawyers who can advise them. They don't have, the savings to fall back on. And so this kind of experience just devastates people. So, two things happened. One was I went through that experience, and the other was when we got hit by a natural disaster, people from all over the country, helped us out. People sent supplies and clothing. People actually showed up here. I had a group of college students from Appalachian State University in North Carolina help me clean up my house. I had a team of 6 Mormon kids show up from Utah to help gut the house. I mean, and that meant so much because when you go through a loss like that, and any kind of loss, you go through a death, you go through a natural disaster, you go through losing your job, you tend to suffer in a silo. It's very isolating. Even though many people around you are experiencing that, it's very isolating. So to feel like, we had the love of the nation. People actually were going out of the way, meant a lot. So, what I came out of that experience was rebuilt my house, rebuilt it bigger and better, time to move on with my life, go back to my lucrative career. And I just couldn't do it, knowing that this was still happening to people. And this will continue to happen to people all over the country unless somebody steps up to fight it. So we started with that, and it wasn't just me. It was a whole bunch of us. There were attorneys involved, there were public adjusters involved, people from the victim space. We worked very closely with our senators and congressmen. So we had, community organizers were a big part of it. So a whole bunch of us saw the pattern of what was happening. And what we did different in Sandy, 2,000 of us sued, they laughed at us. It meant nothing because, they know statistically about 2% of people will litigate, and the other 98% will just take what they're given and walk away. And out of the 2% of people that litigate, they're going to win some of those cases. So, I'll take those odds to Vegas any day. I'm going to win 99% of the time. Yay. We litigated. I was one of the people that sued. I was 50 years old. I had never sued anyone in my life. I was raised old school. We don't sue people. We work for our money in this family. So I was actually ashamed to have to go that route. And I made it a last resort because I tried everything, and they backed me in a corner to where I had no other choices. So, having no other options, I went that route. But even then, it was a joke to them. But what we did differently in Sandy was we got the New York Attorney General to raid an engineering firm on Long Island and seize all their files. Excuse me. They came back a couple of weeks later and walked one of their people out in handcuffs. And that changed everything because they caught them fraudulently altering reports where the engineer on the ground would say this house was damaged by storm forces. Some cases, this peer review process, other engineers would sit around, and other experts we see with adjusters too, sit around and review the report, review the pictures, and change conclusions. And let me tell you, that's not necessarily bad, but it's bad when it becomes fraudulent. And in this case, sometimes they would just add the word not. If the report said, house was damaged by storm forces, all of a sudden we'll come back and say house was not damaged by storm forces. And they denied coverage. And that happened to many, many people. And when the lawsuits happened, all of us kind of knew just something was wrong. And what I found with insurer fraud, and we say, there's two terms. One of them didn't even exist until the APA came around. That's insurer fraud. There's insurance fraud, which is people stealing from the insurance company. And in several states, the insurance fraud law doesn't even define the insurance company stealing from people. They only recognize it as people stealing from the carrier, which does happen, but fraud happens on all sides. It's no set party. There's no set zip code. There's no set job title that fraudsters aren't a part of, and it happens on the carrier side too. So, what we were finding is the people who are victims of the insurer fraud are the last people to know. And myself included, and I feel like I have no excuse. I was an educated professional who grew up in the insurance industry, and I just couldn't believe that this was happening. So they were changing reports. We had an arrest. It was in all the papers. It was covered on 60 Minutes. That was a watershed moment because it got out nationally. And then all of a sudden, the carriers and FEMA who were sort of saying, nothing's happening, when it was red-handed with the criminal arrest. Then they rolled over, in that one arrest, we were able to get, 114,000 claims reopened. I think it was 144,000 actually, and something like $350 million paid out to people who had been cheated. And that was great, except we knew it was still going on. So nobody was willing to just move on. So we all got together and we sort of formed this organization, and we said, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to repeat what we did with this. We're just going to go to the Attorney General. We're going to work with the AGs. They're the top law enforcement official in every state. They are capable of handling white collar crimes. You have to understand these are not thugs throwing bricks through jewelry store windows. These are smart people doing devious things, and they know how to cover their tracks, and they get away with it over and over because nobody in the prosecution community is watching them. Because before the APA came around, nobody was turning in cases against the insurance companies. Nobody was investigating them. So, what happened in civil court, but we know that in civil court, it's a great mechanism to get the homeowner made whole. But many times people sign confidentiality agreements to get paid. Nobody loses their job. Nobody goes to jail. Everyone's in place to commit the same crime tomorrow to another American family. And that needs to stop, right? There needs to be a deterrent, and the fraudsters on all sides of the claims process need to be removed. The APA focuses on the carrier side because nobody else is, but all fraud happens on all sides. All fraud is wrong. All the fraudsters need to be eliminated. But there's many, many organizations and mechanisms, and every public prosecutor is equipped to go after people who steal from the insurance company, but nobody is investigating cases by the carriers or the vendors they hire, such as third-party administrators, engineers, et cetera. So, we started the APA, and then sort of, USDR happened almost on a whim, I'd say. It was maybe 5 years after Sandy. It was so touching for me that people from other areas of the country helped us. And when we saw Hurricane Harvey come in, now, meanwhile, look, I'm not home yet. I'm still treading water myself. I'm still fighting this battle. But when I saw Hurricane Harvey hit Houston and the floods, and I saw, the wreckage on TV that was created down there, I just felt like, look, I got to just, I kept getting on the Garden State Parkway in my car wanting to turn south and go there. So I put a Facebook post up. I had a van, an old 20-year-old Dodge camper van. I put a Facebook post up. Anybody want to donate supplies? I'm going to drive down. And we threw a bunch of stuff in the van, and we just drove down and figured it out. And from that, it sort of evolved, Then, we went to another disaster. And then as a financial advisor, I had one of my clients give us a large donation, like $5,000, which for a little grassroots bunch of neighbors throwing stuff in. Most of us were Sandy victims. That was a lot of money, but I wanted to make sure they got a tax deduction. So now we got to form a 501c3 so they can get a tax deduction. Now I got to come up with a name. I got to come up with a website, come up with a mission. We sort of backed into, just from throwing stuff in our van and going down to what we do now, which is we're still small scale. It's all volunteer. Nobody gets paid. And basically we bring disaster supplies down. Our motto is survivors helping survivors. It means so much for people to be able to have someone who's been through it and just give them a hug and say, it's going to be okay. It's not the end of the world. I went through it. You will get through it. We'll bring past trauma survivors down, first responders, law enforcement, firefighters, some military veterans, survivors of past disasters, because we find it's very therapeutic for them as well to do this. We do some education on disaster trauma, which is the dirty little secret that nobody talks about. And we'll also help fund organizations that spring up organically. When people say, hey, I want to help my neighbors, you'll see some people in the middle of hell, they lift their face out of the mud of their own crisis and say, how can I help those around us? So we will give them micro grants and hook them up with a nonprofit CPA here in New Jersey. His name is Tony Novak, and he'll get them set up with a 501c3, and we'll help fund them to do that. Now, sort of teach a man to fish. Now they can solicit tax deductible donations. So those two organizations came out of what we had lived through personally and just made the commitment to say, hey, we're not going to let this keep happening to people. We have to do something. And of course, the APA was the really groundbreaking. There's a million disaster relief organizations out there. But there's never been anything like the APA. There's never been in American history an organization that just focuses on vetting criminal allegations against the insurance industry and the vendors that they hire. We had to figure it out from scratch. We're still figuring it out from scratch. We're still a new organization, but we've gotten huge traction, and just the very fact that we're out there, and we will continue to grow and make more of an impact on the market. The fact that we're out there means a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah. Wow. What an amazing story. I'll be honest with you, Doug. I have goosebumps right now listening to you. I have had the honor and the privilege to travel with a lot of your coworkers, your co-leaders. We've seen them at just about every single roofing conference known to man. But I've never heard that side of like how the APA got started. And I got to be honest with you, it gave me goosebumps. And what I liked about your story is how you started this out, your mission. Okay. It started from trauma, like some form of trauma that you experienced. Your house was destroyed. And what's even craziest about this story is like, you're right in our backyard here. I remember Sandy, like not like it was yesterday, but I do remember the devastation because that's very unlikely for us up north. Not that it doesn't happen and not that we don't get storms like that up here on the coast, but it's very highly unlikely for us to get a devastating storm like that. So to listen to how you almost like a phoenix story, like where you have rised from the ashes, right? Like you realize like, okay, there's a lot of fraudulent activity going on. If I'm dealing with this and I'm an educated guy with some, some spice behind me and willing to fight in the grit, I can't imagine what other homeowners that aren't as educated or have the financial backing that you may have had, like how badly they're being taken advantage of. And it sounds like you just like went on a mission. I experienced this bad stuff. All these other homeowners are going through it. And just kind of like strike that fire in you to want to fight back. And you had identified right away, maybe you didn't know that it was fraud at the time. I'm sure you know more about it now than you did then, but you just knew something was off. Like you said, like there was something off. And it sounds to me, it's like it at times I'm sure you could imagine, I can imagine that it seems like it's a losing battle, the battle that you're trying to fight right now. But with the passion that you have for this, I'm sure you've made a dent, maybe not in the entire insurance industry, but I would imagine how tiring would it be? Because I'm sure it goes on. Like you said, there's fraud on both sides of it, from the contractor aspect of things to the homeowner insurance fraud. And I'm glad I also like this other point was that you brought up the insurer fraud and insurance fraud and differentiating the two, because I just wanted to make that point clear for our viewers and listeners right now. What Doug is talking about is like defending the consumer, defending the contractor at times, defending us, the people, I guess, against big business insurance companies that are trying to take advantage of those of us that have paid insurance, sometimes for decades, haven't filed a claim, something devastating happens, and they just don't get the financing that they need from the insurance company to rebuild their home, refinish their basement, whatever the case might be, even car insurance at times, a lot of times. So I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that, like, what you stand for, what you're trying to do. You're not actually working for the insurance companies. You're working for the insurer, the person that is insured, and you're the voice advocating for those of us that may have experienced a bad experience with the insurance company. So Doug, tell us about, a little more about the American Policy Association. Like, how many people do you have working for you? Like, what do you do? Where do you go? And like, what, like, are you in the courtroom all day long? Like, what is it that you guys do? And is this like a membership thing that we can sign up for? And if we do, like, what benefits would we get from it? So tell us what it is that you guys do. Is there a membership? If so, what benefits do we get?
So we're a consumer protection organization, and we are here to give voice to people who don't have a voice. We're here to defend people who cannot defend themselves. And that's an American spirit to do that. That is in our nature. That is our tendency. That's how we got started, standing up to oppression, standing up to injustice. And we all have that in our DNA. And that's what we're here. We're here to defend the consumer. And what we say to most people is, anybody can join the APA, right? Your consumers can join for free, and the people that are in the industry that are making money in the claims business on all sides are welcome to join, and they pay dues, and they're the ones that fund it. Because the reality is, look, you make a good living in this business. We talk to many people who are very, very successful, in whatever trade they're doing, or attorneys or public adjusters or restoration contractors, engineers, et cetera. And maybe you just don't have the time or the ability to stand up and fight this the way that we can. And maybe you won't have the credibility because people are saying, well, it's just an attorney trying to, protect his profits. It's just a roofer trying to get more jobs. People can't say that about us because we are here to defend the consumer. So look, if you're doing well in the business, but the people that are putting food on your table, your customers, are getting taken advantage of by one of the most powerful industries in the country, if not the world. And I can't emphasize that enough. And somebody's got to defend them. And maybe this is just a way that you give back. I'd always learned in business, you don't ever just take from a community. You don't just, cash your check, make your money and go on your way. You should be giving back to the community that supports you and supports your family. And this is a way to give back. It's not the only way to give back. There's lots of ways to give back. You should be doing something. And I always say, look, America is a wonderful country. You can get rich. You can do it ethically and honestly, and you can have a little extra to give back to people that aren't as fortunate as you. And if you can do those three things, then you're successful in my book. So this is a way to give back. And here, let me ask you this question.
Okay.
You say it because I know that people, you go to conferences and salespeople are knocking on your door and they're calling you on the phone, and everyone's got to do this, buy my product, give me your money because here's how it benefits you, right? That's the pitch. So everyone's kind of programmed to ask that question. What's in it for me? So let me role play this with you. What if I told you nothing? What if I said there's nothing in it for you? You make a good living. This is a way that you give back to the people who put food on your family's table. And this is a way that you maybe give a little bit of your money, a little bit of your time to help the people who cannot fight for themselves. Is that enough for you?
Yeah.
Thank you. Now I know I'm talking to the right person.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I want to know who's in the trenches with me when the bullets start fighting. And we are going against the alignment of money and power in America. And most countries, you do that, you wind up in a ditch somewhere. And there will be consequences. We've all made our peace with consequences that will come out with going against such a powerful industry. But I want to know who's in the trenches with me when the bullets start flying. So now, by the way, now that I know that your values are straight, there is something for you. You know what I mean? You have the opportunity network, some of the top leaders in the industry. I saw your little boxes in your intro of all the people you've had, all the leaders in the industry you've had on your show, and a large percentage of them are APA members. A lot of people don't know that because we don't necessarily release our membership because people, we don't want people to get picked off. They're afraid of retribution. Some people work both sides. Other people are out there with the shirts or the hats, and this is who I am. This is what I do. I'm about the APA. You don't like it, go pound sand. But, we don't necessarily release our membership list to anybody. So, it's an opportunity to network with some of the top leaders in the industry. It's an opportunity to be part of a team that actually has had somebody arrested for cheating consumers in favor of insurance. It's the opportunity to be able to show your consumers, hey, I'm different. I'm not just here to make money. People put the logo on the sleeves of their shirts. They put them on their trucks. They put them on their email sign off. I'm here to help protect you. I give some of my money and some of my time to be able to do that. And you distinguish yourself apart from the competition because, again, you're a give back kind of person. We do a conference every year with our core members. We have some pretty high-end speakers come in. It's for free. It's included. This year, we're doing it in Nashville. I mean, in the past, we've had the Attorney General of Colorado. We've had Jay Feynman, who wrote Delay, Deny, Defend. We had a PhD economist from the Federal Reserve Board of Governors come and speak. I mean, we've had some. And on top of that, the people that are sitting next to you are the top leaders in the fields of contracting, restoration contracting, public adjusting, attorneys, engineering, et cetera. So, it's a great opportunity because you can get network at any conference, but this is a segment of the population that has values that says, you know what, I'm giving of myself to help the consumer. It's a different type of population. And by the way, it's a new organization. We're just 6 years old this week.
Wow.
To give you an idea, the other organizations that are sort of in the consumer defense space or the fraud fighting space are 30, 40 years, 50, 60. The Consumer Federation of America is 60, 70 years old. They've been around forever, and we're doing a segment that nobody else is doing. So a lot of these people, it's a leap of faith. Imagine when we first started, we're like, here's what we propose to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a lot of innovators. It kind of worked out well because a lot of people sat on the back and said, let's watch and see how this goes. But the innovators came forward and said, ooh, if you ever see Golden Circle Marketing TED Talk, it's amazing. If you haven't seen it. So the first 1.3% of the population are innovators. There are people that see a problem and there's no solution. They create that solution. The next 13% are what we call the alpha consumers, the people that see it. It's not really where it's meant to be yet. Other people are sitting on the side saying, let's see what this is. But they say, I like where this is going. I'm going to jump in and help make it happen. And then the next percentage is what's called the early majority. Then you have the late majority, and then you have the laggards. We started, rather than just let's get 1 million people signed up, let's get a huge pyramid of people piled up. We just started with the top, that 1.3% of the innovators and the alpha consumers, the early people, because they're the ones that would help us build this. And we figured, we'll go for big numbers later. Right now, we need a small circle around the table to say, how do we do this? How do we, if I want to start a roofing company, I can go to a conference. I have any number of experts and coaches who, and gurus who help me. I can go to a YouTube video. You know what I mean? I can take a class and it'll tell me how to start a business.
Yeah.
For what we do, there's nothing. We had to figure it out as we went along. We had to, we basically have to write the book on doing this because it's never been done before. As a matter of fact, when this is said and done, we will write the book because it's some pretty interesting stories. So that's kind of what we're saying. Listen, if you're the kind of person that says I'm successful, I'm going to give a little bit back to people that are, and we're not talking a lot of money. I mean, you could join as a professional member for $84 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Your whole company can join for $2,500 a year as a company membership. $84 a month, that's a cup of coffee a day. That's not bougie Starbucks. That's 7-Eleven, or since we are in the same area, Wawa coffee a day. And we always say, look, if you like what we're doing, buy us a cup of coffee, because it takes money and it takes balls to go against one of the most powerful industries in the country. And I'm not joking. They are the second biggest spending on lobbying money. The first being big pharma, but insurance is right behind them. And, I'm a veteran. We all learn government for the people, by the people, of the people. But I will tell you that money brings a lot of power and influence. And there are meetings and sessions and one-on-ones and face-to-faces with the people in power in this country that you as an average person will never get to attend. But if you're a large, wealthy industry, corporation, wealth family, all of a sudden you get invited because it takes money to, it's a cycle. It takes money to get elected. Mm-hmm. And the people that have the money are people that are already, wealthy and have that power. So there's this little circle of the consolidation of wealth and power. And we're going against that with a tiny little nonprofit budget. All our people make way less than what they're worth out in the market. Everyone puts themselves at personal risk to do this. I've had to instruct our staff what to do if the FBI raids our office, because that's what happens when you go up against the status quo of, wealth and power in anywhere on earth. And it's no different here in America. So it definitely takes some money, but we don't have to spend the kind of money the insurance industry does. Because, first of all, we're cheap. We scrimp by in a nonprofit budget, and we do power analysis on what is the best way to accomplish what we're trying to do. We have some pretty good grassroots community organizing background with a few of our people. We have some great legal background with some of our people. We have some, great financial background that we come from, so we know how to get the best bang for our buck. Mm-hmm. But the bigger the team, the better our chances are winning, and that's how we win. I promise you. for all their commercials and fighting over market share, the insurance industry works very well behind the scenes together. Very well. They co-fund organizations to defend their interests. They do the lobbying. They basically share information and intelligence with computer banks. They work really well behind the scenes. And that's the one problem with your constituency, not so good, right? And look, I get it. Like I say, it's male egos and competition, and it's hardwired into us to, not just dominate the competition, but to destroy the competition.
Yeah.
But the APA tent, we say, is the place where we all come together because we all have the same common value that consumers should not be getting cheated by this powerful industry, and the fact that that's happening. And by the way, they're demonizing your constituents. They're demonizing. If we're talking to a lot of contractors on this show, I get it. Guess what? You're almost public enemy number one to them. And they create all kinds of ads and billboards and radios, spots and memes, which is, contractor fraud, crooked contractor, report contractor fraud, scam contractor. They're constantly putting out this narrative against you. And when we work together, that's how we win. When we share information, when we share intelligence, when we share how we're overcoming the tactics that are put out by the other side, that's how we win. Real important. The APA is one of the ways. And look, there's some great associations out there too. The APA is one of the ways that we can get together, share information, share strategy, share intelligence, and actually make an impact and do something. And a lot of what we do is calling bullshit. We have a phenomenal media outreach. We have a great relationship. We have a lot of reporters that we've isolated that have not just the intelligence to understand what's going on behind the scenes, because it's fairly complicated, but also the editorial support and legal support to print it. Because guess who one of the biggest advertisers in America is?
One of the biggest insurance companies.
This year, they're projected to spend $15.28 billion, $15 billion with a B dollars on digital advertising alone. And that carries a lot of power.
Absolutely.
It carries a lot of power with the elected officials and the people who make the laws and the policies. And the advertising carries a lot of power against those of us who would call bullshit on some of their tactics. There's a lot of press outlets that will not run anti-insurance stories because it's one of their biggest advertisers. That's how they make their money. Or they'll pull their punches. They'll say this insurance company did all these terrible things, but they won't name the carrier. They're getting sued out of existence by the legal departments. They found actually that insurance industry advertising actually influences the jury pool.
Oh.
People are, ooh, they wouldn't do that. They're my good neighbor. Why do you think you can't watch a TV show without seeing 3 or 4 or 5, insurance company advertising? I can't watch a YouTube video without the gecko or flow coming out, And I'm always cautious. Again, I'm not saying everyone in the insurance industry is bad. There's some wonderful people who work in the insurance industry and who believe in the mission. Insurance is a very important tool. There's a lot of people that do what they can to make it happen. But there are too many people who pull bullshit and hurt the American consumer, and nobody's been calling them out. And that's what we're here to do.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with accountability. Right. In anything that we do. And what you've done and what you've put in place is just a measure of accountability. But Doug, you covered so many good things. Again, gave me goosebumps. You were talking about the impact. When you asked me that question, if I was okay with giving something, whether it be my time or service or whatever, giving it back to the community that has been so good to us. And that's within our core values that we have written out. It's all about unity and community, and taking care of the community and making a decision that where it doesn't hurt other people, manufacturing, distribution, community, our teammates and things like that. So our core values definitely do align. And I liked how you talked about like where the real flex comes in when it comes to measuring success. Okay. You talked about and how we measure success here is not by the dollars and cents that we rack up in the bank account, but more so the impact that we have on people's lives. And that's how we measure our impact of like, how many lives have we impacted positively over the course of a year. One of our missions that we go on is that, whether it doesn't matter if it's our location here or the ones that we have down south, we have to participate in at least 10 community activities, charitable events per location per year. So no sooner one's over, we have a committee focusing on what is our next community outreach. Is it a food drive, diaper drive, a free roof for someone that can't afford a roof? And the list goes on. We feed, over 1,000 people the night before Thanksgiving. We close down the day before Thanksgiving. We've done it for 4 years. That's true success right there. Right. And what's crazy about this is, and none of it, when we set out on how can we impact our community, none of it was a publicity stunt. None of it was, it was during COVID, the state of Pennsylvania was closed down. Food insecurity ran rapid. And the world was screwed up at the time. And we had to stay 6 feet away from everybody. Everybody was going to die. We're all going to die. And a lot of bad things were going on, especially with insurance companies, government things, and stuff like that. Not to go down that rabbit hole, but we wanted to do something positive. We shut down an entire city block in the city of York with no permission from local government officials or anything like that. Now, they were notified and they came down. We set up 21 turkey pots, deep fryers, and decided that we were going to beat the Guinness Book of World Records, simultaneously deep frying 21 turkeys at one time, and feed whoever came up at a curbside stop, pick a bag of food up. We ended up doing 34 turkeys our first year and ran out of food within an hour and a half. And we were like, holy shit, we're on to something here. The year after that, we did 60. For the past 2 years, we've done I think last year we did 88 turkeys and served over 900 plates of food. This year, we plan on doing 2 locations, West York and East York. Has been in the works, for the past 2 years, because of course it takes money to do something like this. It takes time and it takes people. It takes an entire army. But the cool thing is because of our community outreach, we've been able to attract really good people into our organization that have the same core values. And it's giving me goosebumps right now because everybody that works here with us works together as a team, unified, cohesively, to have impact. We got Roofers in Recovery, National Roofers in Recovery Days coming up August 7th or 10th, 9th, something like that. Anyhow, someone's getting a free roof that day. Okay. We don't know who yet, but someone, and they probably don't know yet either, but they're getting a free roof. We're going to shut down the organization. Everyone, the girls upstairs, the guys downstairs, the guys out in the field, we're all going to get together, not to get down that rabbit hole, but I love what you have done. I love what it is that you're doing. I love what you stand for. Like this, my hairs are standing up on edge right now listening to you. Okay. So thank you for bringing up what the real flex is. Okay. How many people we impact before we get put in the ground. Okay. That's the real flex, not how much money.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the real flex. Let's get back to what it is you exactly do for a consumer. Like if a consumer signs up for you, like, do they hire you, or are you volunteering your time to give them and educate them, or do you go to court with them? Like, how deep and how far do you take this with them? And then
the one thing to be clear is, the consumers join for free, the professionals join, and some people think, they hired a lawyer for $84 a month. That's not what we're doing. We're working on a grander scale, and we're not here to help you win claims. People do win claims because of their APA involvement, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is to make sure that people that are criminally committing fraud against consumers are being held criminally accountable. And that doesn't happen. Okay. And the reason why is because public prosecutors don't go out and look for insurance fraud cases. They get walked into them by insurance company SIUs. And an SIU is a special investigation unit. Every carrier has one. If the claims department is going through and they see something that looks, fishy, like somebody's trying to scam them, which does happen, it is wrong. It should be cracked down on. They flag it. It goes to the SIU. The SIU investigates it. If they find there's credible evidence that there could be a fraud investigation, they gift wrap it and package it up and walk it into public prosecutors. Now, on many cases, they're actually funding the public prosecutors through premium taxes, grants, et cetera. So you sort of have this very cozy relationship between public prosecutors and insurance company SIUs. And the problem is if all of the cases are being referred to by insurance company SIUs, do we think they're ever turning themselves in?
No, hell no.
No. So if you're a public prosecutor for 30 years, all you've seen is cases coming in of people stealing from insurance companies. It's easy for you to have a bias and say it's only, insurance companies don't steal. It's only coming from. So half of what we do, and I didn't plan on this, I didn't think about it, is we have to educate the elected officials and public prosecutors that insurance companies commit fraud too. And we do that. And I had to literally fly around the country. I've met with 47 out of the 50 attorneys general. I've met with unlimited senators and congressmen. I met with Trump's chief of staff, White House chief of staff. I've actually testified to multiple state legislators. I've testified to Congress. And all the same message. Insurance carriers are committing fraud too, or the vendors they're hiring are committing fraud. Fraud happens on all sides and it needs to be enforced. So a lot of what we do is just getting the message out there and educating the people in power that you need to do something about this. And then we're also educating consumers on how to defend themselves. If you go under resources and tools and resources on our website, there's a bunch of free literature that we've written based on our members' personal experiences that helps people defend themselves. We also have built the first ever SIU in American history that defends you, that protects consumers and vets and investigates cases against the carriers and the vendors that they hire. So it's not necessarily like, hey, Mrs. Smith signs up and now we're your lawyer. We're not here for that. And by the way, we have to tell a lot of people no, because here's the problem. Everyone's used to civil court. And in civil court, you win by establishing the preponderance of evidence is the term. If I prove 51% that you're liable, I win. Criminal court is a whole other animal. The standard we have to prove is beyond a reasonable doubt. No prosecutor will tell you this, but it's like the 95th percentile that you have to prove your case. And it's innocent until proven guilty. And if there's a multiple explanations for why what happened, the prosecutor is sort of obligated to look at the other explanations and any kind of exculpatory evidence, what we call Brady evidence. So we have a lot of cases that are referred to us that you could see there's fraud there, but there's no evidence. And in the end, we have to bring this to a prosecutor. And the prosecutor will look at, it's not like, here's what I learned. Nothing is like you see on TV. A tiny, tiny percentage of the crime in America gets prosecuted. Tiny. And the prosecutors don't like charge you, like you see on TV just to bother you and rattle your cage. They have limited resources. They're obligated not to waste public resources unless they think they can win the case. So when you turn a case to a prosecutor, they're going to look at three things. What is the crime that's alleged to have occurred, the violation of the state penal code? What is the evidence that this crime occurred? And three, what is my odds of convincing a jury of their peers beyond a reasonable doubt that this person is guilty? And if those pieces aren't lined up, they're not going to take the case. Our own prosecutor, we have one of the top insurance fraud prosecutors in the country, worked for us. He ran a $13 million a year unit in one county in California, just focusing on insurance fraud. $13 million a year. And what he would say, and he crack team of investigators, most of whom work for us now, they're all retired. We staffed them up as they retired. And basically, he said, for every 10 cases, I would say, here's a referral. I would take it to my district attorney, my public prosecutor, and he would take 1 out of the 10. Wow. Even we see the statistics from the insurance company SIUs, something like 1 or 2% of their cases results in even an arrest, not even a conviction. So it's a big numbers game. It's a lot of volume. And there are a lot of times when we see, this looks like fraud, but we just don't have the proof to take it to a prosecutor. And what our prosecutor tells us is, if I ever had somebody bring me a case that was weak, like they were wasting my time, every case they ever sent to me after that went to the bottom of the pile. So we know our reputation goes out with each referral. We have 4 active criminal investigations going on right now. Some of them have been in the paper. Like I said, we have a big press reputation and people that we work with. We've been in the Washington Post, New York Times, Newsweek magazine, Business Week. We've been in Shot with NBC with Lester Holt, one of the top 5, not just news programs, but TV programs in America. We just shot with a big media outlet that is a household name. I can't release who it is, but that will be shown in September. So, we have a lot of influence to be able to put, like, we're calling shenanigans on this. Mm-hmm. Companies are saying, hey, we're losing money. We have an underwriting loss. You're supposed to have an underwriting loss. An underwriting loss does not mean the insurance company lost money. Mm-hmm. And Warren Buffett is one of the few people in America that actually do insurance right, will tell you, you're supposed to have an underwriting loss. There's 2 ways you make money in insurance in America. One is what's called the spread, the difference between what we took in premiums and how much we pay out in claims. That difference we get to keep. And the other is what's called the float, which is that couple of $1 billion we're sitting on while we're waiting to pay it out in claims, which may be anywhere from 1 to 30 years or maybe never. They're investing that money, earning 30, 40% on it. Mm-hmm. Your underwriting loss is your cost of capital to invest. So if you have a 4% underwriting loss, that's cheap capital. You're not having to float, high yield bonds at 8, 12%, what we used to call, I'm an old investment guy. We used to call them junk bonds back in the 80s. So the market collapsed. You're not having to pay 10, 12% for your capital to invest in the market. It's the cost of your underwriting loss. That's how you get the capital. So a lot of these companies are like, oh, we have an underwriting loss. The sky is falling. We've got to raise our rates. No. Tell us what your actual corporate profit or loss is. Mm-hmm. They have a way of just showing you the little slice that allows regulators to raise their insurance premiums for them. So, we're out there calling shenanigans. We have a good reputation with the press. We have great credibility, something you're not going to get if you own a roofing company. You're not going to get if you own an individual law firm. We've had our members testify to state legislatures. We've had our members testify to the Attorney General's Association. We've had our members, talk to the press quite often because we have a lot of this experience and we're calling out things that no one else is calling out. So, that's a big part of what we do. Yeah, we take in the criminal cases and do investigations and refer them to prosecutors. But above and beyond that, we're doing a lot of education. We're educating the prosecutors themselves. We're finding out what the carriers are doing that we think is unethical and calling that out. We're going after licenses of people who are licensed, like engineers, who do unethical behavior in the conduct of their profession. So it's a diverse mission. Mm-hmm. If you look at our literature, you'll even see, there's a lot of education of consumers, how to protect yourself in a natural disaster from insurer fraud. We put thousands of those out in natural disasters. There's one, how to self-advocate on an insurance dispute. If you're the kind of person that, maybe your claim's not big enough to attract the attention of an attorney or a public adjuster. But there's a lot of them that are great, and they'll do some work that's basically pro bono. They're not making enough to cover the time. But a lot of times, if it's a smaller claim, if you're a poorer person, your house is worth, we have a whole thing that teaches you how to self-advocate, different pressure points for the carrier, and actual negotiation tactics and techniques.
Yeah, I like that. I like how you finished off what you were just saying. And for clarity purposes, for anybody that's watching this or will watch this, what you're doing isn't for the contractor and how to win more jobs through insurance. What it is, at least from my understanding, Doug, is that you're here to educate the consumer, whether I be a contractor or not. I own a home, I have insurance, or just regular old Johnny homeowner who doesn't know if they're being taken advantage of by the insurance company or not. So Vic posted your website in there, www.apassociation.org. Anybody wants any more literature or methods to avoid, insurer fraud. I mean, go to his website. I was on it this morning. There's all kinds of information, educational pieces on there. And just so everybody understands, this is holding the insurance companies accountable. right? And I'm sure it's not just the roofing industry. And the sad thing is that unfortunately, there's a lot of contractors out there that also take advantage of homeowners and insurance companies that may have given us contractors a bad name when a storm does hit. And that's why they're out there putting billboards and the yard signs out, like avoid scamming contractors and things like that. Like you had mentioned earlier, there's bad apples on both sides of that fence.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that you were the one to step out of your comfort zone and defend the consumer against those bad apples in the insurance industry. And it takes a lot of balls. You said it earlier, and I think somebody commented in there and kind of chuckled. It takes big balls, and it is. And you're not just you, but your team and all the retired people that have came to work for you. Big shout out to all those people too, because I can only imagine that it seems like it's a losing battle at times. I'm sure, at least from my perspective, looking from outside into you guys, I can imagine that. I'm sure it's very tiring, very, very time consuming, but thank you for everything that you do. And before we get off here, we're coming up on our 1 hour here. Doug, you've left us with so much. I know so much more. And just know this, we're going to be signing up as a contractor, just to support the cause. I believe, I think it shows our authenticity, our ethicalness, as a contractor, that if we're supporting someone that is fighting a good cause that you are, I think that's just one good aspect that, like, I would put the sticker on my truck, APA sticker on my truck anytime. But before we get off here, and I want you to leave our viewers with something. It can be something personal, it could be something professional, or a combination of two. Leave us with something that we can take away from here and apply it in our daily lives, if you don't mind.
Well, I will tell you this, what you can apply in your daily lives, and it actually, is relevant to what we do. There's justice and there's fairness and there's overcoming hardship, and it's hard to do, right? It is hard for us to stand up to this powerful, powerful industry, but it needs to be done. Do we quit because it's hard? No, tough shit, fight harder. We don't quit. That's what we do. If in our soul we say this is the right thing, then we will continue to fight. And, many people on our team have made huge sacrifices to do this. Was it easy for a bunch of shopkeepers and clerks and farmers to pick up a musket and fight the most powerful superpower on the planet and create a country called America? Imagine what they did. The people that signed the Declaration of Independence, basically it was an invitation to get hung as a traitor. Sign their names and on a document that everyone was going to see, and put everything. And these were people of wealth and power that did that. But you also looked at people that, were basically simple people. They were not professional soldiers. We didn't have a professional army, but they said what's happening is unjust. It is oppressive. It's not fair. And maybe it's hard to do, and maybe it looks like the odds are against us, but we're going to step up and fight anyway. You fight for what's right, regardless of what your odds of success are. If you're the kind of person that just takes the fights that you can win, well, I suggest you're a pussy, right? And there's no room for that in our America. We stand up for what's right, whether other people agree with it or not. And that's what the APA is here to do. Absolutely, it's a challenging mission, but I promise you, we will win. And the more people we have on the team, the better chance we have, the quicker that we'll get there. But we don't quit, and we will 100% win. And you should go into that with every day of your life. That's how you leave your house in the morning. So if you're again, I can't tell you how many times in 7 years trying to fight to get back home, fighting against the insurance industry, the federal government, my state government, my own town, like everywhere, my mortgage company, everywhere I turned, there was someone there trying to kick me in the balls. And how many times, like I just said, maybe I just throw in the towel and I sell my property for whatever it's worth. Don't even worry about building the house. And then I just had, what I said? I'm going to build this fucking house, and I don't care if I build it and light it on fire afterwards. I will not let them win. This is wrong. And then when I built my house, I said, you know what? We're not going to let them do this to other people. We're going to stand up against this injustice. We're going to stand up against this oppression. And in doing that, we become the people that we're meant to be, right? And standing up, it's great to make the money. It's great to have the trucks and the power and all the finances. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, we want to have that little bit to stand up for people who can't defend themselves. And the APA is one of the ways that we do that.
Amen. Amen. Way to cap this episode off, Doug. Big shout out to you and your team, and kudos to you. I love everything that you had mentioned. I'm sad because I haven't got to know you sooner. Because dude, you're definitely a person that I would want in my circle. And we're probably only 2.5 hours away from each other. So anyhow, let's stay in touch. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you everybody for tuning in. If you came in late, please go onto our YouTube channel, Facebook channel, Spotify, Google, Apple, all that stuff. Please catch us, love, comment, share it. Let us know what you think. Give us your opinion, right, wrong, or indifferent. Thank you guys for tuning in. And Doug, thank you so much for everything that you fight for the consumers. Thank you for everything that you do. And big shout out to your team and support that you have out there. And just know that we are signing up and appreciate that everything that you and your team do on a daily basis. So thank you, Doug.
Excellent. Thank you for having us and giving us this opportunity to speak.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week.
Join us next week on Behind the Tool Belt from TC Backer Construction in Bluffton, South Carolina. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Facebook page. Thanks for watching.